Okay, welcome everybody today. Very quick lesson because I'm starting with a student in about 10 or 15 minutes. And I'm repeating an old topic. And it's because I'm not very happy with the way I explained things in the first lesson. I think I was really aiming it at foreign students, and this is aimed at native speakers. I've tried to make this class simpler, if I'm honest, so that it's easier for you to remember the rules. Now, the reason why I think this is a very important subject, and it's actually lesson number 1 with all of the native speakers that I deal with, all of the prospective teachers, they all start with subject-verb agreement. And it's because it's in the literacy paper, in the grammar section in the Department for Education and Skills literacy paper. 60 or 70% of the grammar section seems to be dealing with subject-verb agreement, and so it's a very important topic if you want to pass that exam. It's a very important topic anyway, because it's very easy to make a mistake with this topic, and certainly students or pupils will be penalised if they make a mistake with this kind of stuff. And a lot of it is actually counterintuitive as well, which is a bit of a pain. You can't just say it to yourself in your head and get the right answer. You need to look at the rules and get the right answer. And so that's a bit difficult as well. But there aren't many rules. There are very few rules. Let's go through them quickly. Number 1, anytime you see an and, you're going to use plural because you're joining two things together. And joins two things together, so it must be plural. And if you're not sure whether the verb go is singular or plural, or goes is singular or plural, just say it to yourself. One man go or one man goes. Two men go or two men goes. And you should come to the right answer, because your brain does naturally use subject-verb agreement, and so it wants to say two men go, not goes, and one man goes, not go. And so the first thing to notice is that the singular form has an S on the end, and the plural form doesn't, which is the complete opposite to nouns. You add an S on a noun to make it plural, you take the S away to make it singular. So a lot of students get confused with that. Please remember that you add an S to make something singular with a verb, okay? One man goes, but two men go. Okay, and you can do that with any verb. And by the way, I really dislike the description of a verb as a doing word. It's fine for primary schools. For primary schools, you can tell a young child who hasn't started to analyse the language or hasn't picked up a second language, you can tell them that a verb is a doing word, and they'll understand, they'll think they're words like jump or sing or dance, okay. But in senior schools, the kids are going to start learning French, German, Spanish. And when they learn these languages, they have to learn the verbs. And they will notice that verbs are actually words which change in the ending of the verb. They decline depending on whether it's a he, a she, a you, a I, a we. It's the very first thing you learn when you start learning modern languages. You look at the verbs and you see how the verbs change, how the verbs decline depending on the pronoun. That's the definition of a verb. A verb is a word that declines. A verb always has a subject, like one man or two men, and it changes depending on whether it's one man or two men or you or I or we. That's what a verb is. It's not a doing word. It's not an action. Otherwise, if you tell students that, students will think that the word action is a verb, and it's not. Definitely not. It's a noun. To act is the verb. And verbs like to be, they're not actions, they're not doing words at all, but they're definitely verbs. So please avoid oversimplistic explanations with senior school kids, because they will know that that's not right. If the ones who are good at foreign languages, they will see that that's not right. Verbs aren't doing words, they're words which decline depending on the subject. Okay, so X and Y are always plural. X or Y, I'm taking too long on this lesson, X or Y. If you see an or, the only word that's important is the Y, okay? You can forget the rest of it at the front if you see a Y. And so I say Y determines the verb form. Here's a quick example. My cat or my dogs are, but my dogs or my cat is. Okay, so only this one is important. Dogs are, my cat is. Okay, pretty easy. Number 3, neither and either of plus plural noun is singular. Okay, this is the most counterintuitive rule. It looks very plural because you've got a plural noun, but really you're actually, when you say neither of the cars, you're actually saying neither this one car nor, I should put nor there as well because they both have this rule, nor that one car. And that's why it's singular, because the second part is one car. So I often say to students, is either of these times convenient? But every bone in my body wants to say, are either of these times convenient? But I know, thanks to this rule, that really I mean, is this one time or that one time convenient? And so it makes sense, it's logical, it's just very counterintuitive, it's not what you want to say. The same here, neither of these answers, that's very plural, is correct, not are correct. Neither of these answers is correct. That's the formal way of making subjects and verbs agree. And so that's the way you ought to teach, that's the way that Oxford tell you to do it, and all of the style guides, they all agree about this, that that's what should be done. Okay, number 4, each, every, and usually either and neither are singular, okay? I say usually either and neither because if you say neither my cat nor my dogs, then it will be plural, yeah? Because you've got to take the second element. So usually singular, but not always. Number 5, when you've got noun of noun, and you should remember that this word of always has a noun before it and a noun after it. Usually, the first noun is subject. Yeah, if you say the list of jobs, you normally say the list of jobs is on the table. And it's because the list is on the table, not the jobs. The jobs aren't on the table. How can a job be on a table? The list is on the table, so usually it's the first noun, but not always. Have a look here. When you say he is one of the children that go or that goes to school on a Sunday, I hope you can see that some people might say, oh, it must be one that's the subject of the verb go, because one is the first noun in the noun of noun form, and so one child goes, right? No, because you can clearly see from this sentence that a group of children go to school on a Sunday. So one is not the subject of the verb go. Children is the subject of the verb go. It's children, it's a group of children that go to school on a Sunday, and so the correct answer here is go. The incorrect answer is goes. It's not one child goes, but the children go to school on a Sunday. So there's an example when it's noun of noun, and it's the second noun that's important. Just wanted to make that clear, that sometimes it's the second noun. It's usually when you have a defining relative clause starting with that pronoun that. Okay, lastly, collective nouns. A lot of different information online about collective nouns. The general idea that I see is lean towards singular informal writing with collective nouns. I know for a fact the Americans do this, and I know for a fact that Bristol University certainly do this. They're the only university I've found in the UK that have grammar online. And yeah, they seem to like you to, they would like you to lean towards singular as well. Oxford clearly state that singular and plural are both possible, but you must be consistent. Use singular and plural with verbs and pronouns. You should remember that you've got a plural pronoun there, and you've got a singular pronoun, its. So if you're using singular verb forms, you need this one, and if you're using plural verb forms, you need this one. So do remember that you've got to be consistent. And we only really use plural when we're thinking in terms of a group of individuals, and there are some sentences where singular would sound very strange because you're using the sentence referring to a group of individuals. So if you talk about the England team, and of course we won yesterday, so I'm very happy about that. But if we talk about the England team doing various activities as individuals, so you might say something like, if you're talking about their general daily routine, the England team, something like this, the England team wake up and then they go to training and then they all have a shower and then they go on to do something else. you are speaking of them as a they, and so in that situation you might want to make it all plural, but make sure that it's all plural. If you're going to start in plural, it's all got to be plural. One more thing, there are some collective nouns which are always singular. The police is always the police. Sorry, that are always plural. I'm saying it wrong here, getting confused. The police is always plural. The police is always the police are looking for the suspect. It's never singular with the police, okay? So greetings to Siberia. So some words are always plural, even though they're collective nouns, and that confuses everybody. I was looking at the staff recently, and I know in the States they would always say the staff is. I think in Britain we'd usually say the staff are. But to be really clear to someone, personally, I would err on the side of caution and say the staff members are, because staff is a collective noun, and so some people might argue it ought to be singular. I would say the staff members are, and then you've got all bases covered. Okay. But it's confusing, this subject-verb agreement. It's easy to make a mistake with it, and it's important if you want to pass your literacy paper, or if you just want to make sure that the pupils, the students, don't drop marks by not making sure that their subjects and verbs agree. Okay? The government would be singular. It's a collective noun, and normally you'd say the government is. The government was. However, if you're talking about all the individual politicians in government, you might use the government are if you're thinking of them as individuals. But be consistent. That's the main thing. Be consistent. And generally, if you have a choice between the government is and the government are, and you don't see much difference between the two, go for is. Because lean towards singular informal writing. Okay, I've got to stop here because I've got Joseph coming online any second. Thanks for watching, everybody. I'm going to do some more lessons about this, especially in regards to the literacy paper, because I'd like to try and help people pass that paper. Okay, thanks for your time, everybody, and I hope to see you all soon.